Hey guys, I am so full of emotion today. Um, and I just wanted to come on and share why. So, my name is Michelle. I have breast cancer and I've been sharing my journey here. So, I appreciate anybody who just stopped by. If I popped up on your FYP or you searched for me or searched for something breast cancer related or however you happen to find me, I appreciate you stopping by and sticking around to the end. Um, as I've mentioned before in previous videos, I am pretty active in the theater community here on Long Island, and the past few years I've mostly been working with a theater company, a small theater company in Lindenhurst, South Shore Theater Experience, and I've done a few wonderful shows there, and I've gotten to know the people that run the theater. Patrick and Stephen are just wonderful, very supportive, and just really wonderful guys. And as I've gotten to know them, through my work there, I had shared that I wanted to direct something. So early last year, early 2025, Patrick came to me and said he had something possible. Was I interested in directing this particular show called These Shining Lives? I had never heard of it before, but I was just thrilled. It's really my first time directing anything, but I knew I wanted to do it. And so I looked it up, and he gave me a little background on it, and it turned out the play was inspired by and about a true story of the Radium Girls, which are these, I want to say women, but really they were young ladies, young as real life story. These women as young as 14 years old, 13 years old, through their mid-20s, back after World War I, between the two wars, painting radium on the hands of watches and clocks to use the iridescent and the glow-in-the-dark effect of the radium. It initially started for the soldiers during wartime so they could see time at night and they wouldn't be seen by the enemy. And then after the war was over, it continued. It became very popular to use radium in everyday life. People were ingesting it. It was said to be the next great elixir. It was said to cure all kinds of ailments. It was in water. It was in paint. It was in makeup. It was in clothing. It was pervasive. It was everywhere. It was really the next great thing for everyone to use. But it wasn't. It was cancer causing, among many, many other ailments, but specifically really caused cancer, especially when it was ingested or used or interacted with unprotected. And these women, their job was to paint the hand dials on these watches. And the way that they would do it is they would have a paintbrush, and they had a little bowl of powdered radium, and then they had a little bowl of an activator, and they would dip it into these things, and they would take the paintbrush and lick the paintbrush to point it to get a really sharp, fine edge so that they could paint the nicest, neatest, sharpest edge on these face watches. So they would lip, dip, paint, lip, dip, paint, over and over again, all day long. So they were ingesting powdered radium, pure powdered radium, every day, 8 hours a day, for years. And obviously, this did not end well for these women. But what wound up happening was there were landmark lawsuits. It changed the way, workplaces treated hazardous materials. At the end of it, these women really were able to impact great change across industry for being activists and standing up for what was wrong and fighting for themselves and for other women. So that's what this play is about. It's about these four women who became friends, who worked together in this one particular factory, and through tragedy overcame their illness, overcame adversity, and were able to fight for themselves and ultimately change an industry. And it is such a beautiful, beautiful play. Now, I mentioned that Patrick came to me with this play early last year. maybe it was March, could have been earlier, but I want to say it was March maybe. I was enamored with this play. First few pages brought me to tears. It's so beautifully written. It is poetic. It's visually poetic. It's verbally poetic. The arc of the story, just the characters, everything is just beautiful, beautiful in this play. Well, fast forward to July, I had my diagnosis of breast cancer. So it was a bit serendipitous that he would come to me and offer me this play to direct that dealt directly with cancer and women and being strong and overcoming this adversity of dealing, now this is the 1920s, keep in mind, so there wasn't nearly as much research, there wasn't nearly as much medical intervention or help or all of these treatments, chemotherapy wasn't a thing, none of these treatments, immunotherapy, hormone therapy, none of these things were around back then. So these women they were given aspirin. They were given aspirin. They were told to relax. They were told that they were over dramatizing, that they were exaggerating, that they were just exhausted, that it was the flu. It's really it's quite devastating. But in the face of all of this, these women in real life and in this play had strength of character. And now we just started rehearsals on this play. We've had really 3. We've had 1 read through and 2 blocking rehearsals on this play. And I have been moved to tears. I've been literally moved to tears each rehearsal night. I think this is going to be such a special, special play. Not just because of my story, but also my leading lady. She also has cancer. She's been dealing with metastatic cancer for over 10 years. She's on permanent or semi-permanent immunotherapy. We don't really know. She doesn't really know when there's an end, if there'll be an end. It's just prevention for her. It's a lifestyle. For me, I do have an end. I'm going to be on my chemotherapy, have 1 more session, February 10th, and then I have radiation, which will probably bring me to the end of March, because that's going to be about 3 weeks. It'll start a few weeks after the chemo ends, and then I have immunotherapy until October. And then from there, we have to see where we go. But for me, at least I see an end. I don't specifically feel the mortality of what I'm dealing with, because I know that there's a plan for me. Many other women, it's a different story. I've become friends through TikTok and through other social platforms with other women who have been dealing with breast cancer or other forms of cancer that don't have an end. There's one woman that follows me, and she's on chemotherapy for the rest of her life. And it's just devastating, and it's hard. It's hard to keep positive. It really is hard to keep positive, and it's to keep focused on moving forward. But you have to keep focused on moving forward, because you really have no other choice. I've talked about this being, many people have told me I'm strong, I'm brave, and I still don't see it as being strong and brave. I just see it as me living my life. And I think if you talk to any other person that's fighting with cancer or going through chemotherapy or this sort of treatment of any kind, they'll say the same thing. It's not necessarily that, it's not a strength. It's just, you just do. You just make it through. You just take what you have, and you just take the next thing, and you take the next thing. But the other part of this that's gotten me emotional as well today is that Stephen, one of the other creative directors at the theater, shared with me that for the play, they're actually going to be doing some fundraising, and they'll be selling some items and donating, and they're going to be matching some gifts. And so this is not just about putting on a play. It's not just about me having breast cancer. It's about so much more. It's about so much more. It's about community. It's about support. I've also reached out to my other friend Melissa, who many of you also follow, and she does her whole pen of the day thing and coordinates with our other friend Ross, who puts these pens together, these wonderful, beautiful, creative pens. And some of those are going to be donated to the cause as well, and those will also be part of the fundraising. And I've literally been a teary mess for hours because it's just overwhelming. And I just think it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing when people can come together and make something happen out of their goodness of their heart. And so, this play is really special to me. First of all, it's the first play I've ever directed, and I mean, I've assistant directed, I've stage managed, I've done all kinds of stuff. But for something like this to be the first one that I've done, it's just incredible. This is going to live with me for the rest of my life, and I'm so eternally grateful for Patrick and Stephen for giving me the opportunity to do that. And I think that if you don't mind a little plug, if you want to come down and experience something that's going to be a beautiful moment, come to see this play. I'll put the information in the comments, but it's truly, I think it's going to be something special. If we can make it through rehearsal without crying. But it's not, and it's not to say it's just it's a tragedy of a play, but it's a beautiful play. And these characters are written, and they are intended to be uplifting and empowering, because that's what they were. They weren't victims. They were choosing to work. They were choosing to do this job. Tragedy befell them, but they overcame it, and they fought. And they fought for themselves, and they fought for the other women that were also going through this. And in turn, for other workers, not just women workers, but other workers in other industries, future decades moving forward. Part of the tragedy too is that there's still things like this that happen, where there are workplace hazards that are deliberately overlooked, that are swept under the rug. Women are dismissed with their illnesses. Another friend of mine for 10 years had various symptoms of a slew of symptoms, and every time she went to the doctor, various doctors, all kinds of doctors, she was told to lose weight, that was her problem. But she's a woman who exercises all the time, runs 5Ks, does mud races and adventure runs and half marathons, and is not overweight by any means, but was told that she needed to lose weight and that was what her problem was. And ultimately it was cancer in her stomach, where she had to have, I believe it was either a quarter or a third of her stomach removed. So these things still happen. They still happen. But these women fought. They fought for real life change that happened 100 years ago, that we're still fighting for today. So there's so much here. There's so much here. Again, the play is called These Shining Lives. It's just really quite beautiful, and I'm just thrilled and honored and pleased to be any part of it. And I do hope that you will understand where all this is coming from, because it's just it's going to be something special. I might be a little biased because I am directing it, but I do think that it's going to be something special. So hopefully, if you're in the area, if you have time, come to see it. I think you'll really enjoy it. Bring your tissues. It's beautiful. And on that note, thanks for watching. If you stuck around to the end, I really appreciate it. And take care, guys. Take care of yourselves. Okay? Good night.